badgers. The white patches on their cheeks were all Edmund could see of them. Leapt up and bared teeth and asked them in snarling voice, "Who goes there?" Trumpkin, said the dwarf, bringing the High King of Narnia out of the far past. The badger nosed at the boy's hands. "At last," they said, "at last. Give us a light, friend," said Trumpkin. The badgers found a torch just inside the arch, and Peter lit it and handed it to Trumpkin. "The DLF had better lead," he said. "Or better lead," he said. "We don't know our way about this place." Trumpkin took the torch and went ahead into the dark tunnel. It was a cold, black, musty place with an occasional bat fluttering in the torchlight and plenty of cobwebs. The boys, who had been mostly in the open air since that morning at the railway station, felt as if they were going into a trap or a prison. "I say," Peter whispered Edmund, "look at those carvings on the walls. Don't they look old? And yet we're older than that. When we were last here, they hadn't been made." "Yes," said Peter, "that makes one thing." The dwarf went on ahead and then turned to the right and then to the left. Then at last they saw a light from under the door, and now for the first time they heard voices, for they had come to the door of the central chamber. The voices inside were angry ones. Someone was talking so loudly that the approach of the boys and the dwarf had not been heard. "Don't like the sound of that," whispered Trumpkin to Peter. "Let's listen for a moment." All three stood perfectly still on the outside of the door. "You know well enough," said a voice. "That's the king," whispered Trumpkin. "Why, the horn was not blown at sunrise this morning. Have you forgotten that Mizraz fell upon us almost before Trumpkin had gone? And we were fighting for our lives for the space of 3 hours and more. I blew it when first I had a breathing space. I'm not likely to forget it," came the angry voice, "when my dwarfs bore the brunt of the attack, and 1 in 5 of them fell." "That's Nickabrig," whispered Trumpkin. "For shame, dwarf," came a thick voice. "Truffle hunters," said Trumpkin. "We all did as much as the dwarfs, and none more than the king." "Tell that tale your own way, for all I care," answered Nickabrig. "But whether it was that the horn was blown too late, or whether there was no magic in it, no help has come. You great clerk, your master magician, you know. Oh, are you still using us to hang our hopes on Aslan and King Peter and all the rest of it? I must confess, I cannot deny it, that I am deeply disappointed in the result of the operation," came the answer. "That be Dr. Cornelius," said Trumpkin. "To speak plainly," said Nickabrig, "your wallet's empty, your eggs addled, your fish uncaught, your promises broken. Stand aside, then I let others work, and that is why." "The help will come," said Truffle Hunter. "I stand by Aslan. Have patience, like us, beast. The help will come. It may be even now at the door." "Pah!" snarled Nickabrig. "You badgers would have us wait till the sky falls, then we can all catch larks. I tell you, we can't wait. Food is running short. We lose more than we can afford at every encounter. Our followers are slipping away." "And why?" asked Truffle Hunter. "I'll tell you why. Because it is noised among them that we have called on the kings of old, and the kings of old have not answered." The last words Trumpkin spoke before he went, and went most likely to his death, were, "If you must blow the horn, do not let the army know why you blow it, or what you hope from it." But that same evening everyone seemed to know. "You'd better is your friend? Why am I to be the only one who can't bring in his friends? His Majesty is the king to whom you have sworn allegiance, said Trufflehunter sternly. Court manners, sneered Nickabrick. But in this hole we may talk plainly, you know, and he knows that this Telmarine boy will be king of nowhere and nobody in a week unless we can help him out of the trap in which he sits. Perhaps, said Cornelius, your new friends would like to speak for themselves. You there, who and what are you? Worshipful Master Doctor, came a thin, whining voice. So please you, I am only a poor old woman. I am very obliged to his worshipful doorship for his friendship. I'm sure His Majesty, bless the handsome face, has no need to be afraid of an old woman that's nearly doubled up with the rheumatics and hasn't 2 sticks to put under her kettle. I have some poor little skill, not like yours, Master Doctor, of course, in small spells and cantrip that I'd be glad to use against your enemies. Was agreeable to all concerned, for I hate him. Oh yes, no one hates better than me. That is all most interesting and satisfactory, said Dr. Cornelius. I think I know now what you are, madam. Perhaps your other friend Nickabrick would give some account of himself. A dull, great voice, at which Peter's flesh crept, replied, I'm hunger, I'm thirst. Where I bite, I hold till I die, and even after death, they must cut out my mouthful from my enemy's body and bury it with me. I can fast 100 years and not die. I can lie 100 nights on ice and not freeze. I can drink a river of blood and not burst. Show me your enemies. And it is in the presence of this too that you wish to disclose your plan, said Caspian. Yes, said Nickabrick, and by their help that I mean to execute it. There was a minute or two during which Trumpkin and the boys could hear Caspian and his 2 friends speaking in low voices, but could not make out what they were saying. Then Caspian spoke aloud. Well, Nickabrick, he said, we will hear your plan. There was a pause so long that the boys began to wonder if Nickabrick was ever going to begin. When he did, it was a lower voice, as he himself did not much like what he was saying. All said and done, he muttered, none of us knows the truth about the ancient days in Narnia. Trumpkin believed none of the stories. I was ready to put them to the trial. We tried first the horn, and it has failed. If there ever was a High King Peter and a Queen Susan and King Edmund and Queen Lucy, then either they have not heard us, or they cannot come, or they are our enemies, or they are on the way, put in Trufflehunter. You can go on saying that till Miraz has fed us all his dogs. As I was saying, we have tried one link in the chain of old legends, and it has done us no good. Well, but when your sword breaks, you draw your dagger. The stories tell of the other powers beside the ancient kings and queens. How if we could call them up? If you mean Aslan, said Trufflehunter, it's all one calling on him, and on the kings. They were his servants, if he will not send them, but I make no doubt he will. Is he more likely to come himself? No, you're right there, said Nickabrick. Aslan and the kings go together. Either Aslan is dead, or he is not on our side, or else something stronger than himself keeps him back. And if he did come, how do we know he'd be our friend? He was not always a good friend to dwarves by all that's told, not even all beasts. of someone else. There was no answer, and for a few minutes it was so still that Edmund could hear the wheezy and snuffling breath of the badger. "Who do you mean?" said Caspian at last. "I mean a power so much greater than Aslan's that it held Narnia spellbound for years and years, if the stories are true." "The White Witch," cried three voices all at once. From the noise, Peter guessed that three people had leapt to their feet. "Yes," said Nickabrick, very slowly and distinctly. "I mean the witch. Sit down again. Don't all take fright at the name as if you were children. We want power, and we want a power that will be on our side. As for power, do not the stories say that the witch defeated Aslan and bound him and killed him on that very stone, which is over there, just beyond the light? But they also say that he came to life again," said the badger sharply. "Yes, they say," answered Nickabrick. "But you'll notice that we hear precious little about anything he did afterwards. He just fades out of the story. How do you explain that? If he really came to life, isn't it much more likely that he didn't? And the stories say nothing more about him because there's nothing more to say. He established the kings and queens," said Caspian. "A king who has just won a great battle can usually establish himself without the help of a performing lion," said Nickabrick. There was a fierce growl, probably from Truffle Hunter. "And anyway," Nickabrick continued, "what came of the kings and their reign? They phased too. But it's very different with the witch. They say that she ruled for 100 years. 100 years of winter. There's power if you like. There's something practical." "But heaven and earth," said the king. "Haven't we always been told that she was the worst enemy of all? Wasn't she a tyrant 10 times worse than Miraz?" "Perhaps," said Nickabrick in a cold voice. "Perhaps she was for you humans, if they were any of you in those days. Perhaps she was for some of the beast. She stamped out the beavers, I dare say. At least there are none of them in Narnia now. But she got on all right with the dwarves. I am a dwarf, and I stand by my own people. We're not afraid of the witch. But you've joined with us," said Truffle Hunter. "Yes, and a lot of good it has done my people so far," snapped Nickabrick. "Who is sent on all the dangerous raids? The dwarves. Who go short when the rations fail? The dwarves. Who?" "Lies, all lies," said the badger. And so Nickabrick, whose voice now rose to a scream, "If you can't help my people, I'll go to someone who can." "Is this open treason, dwarf?" asked the king. "Put that sword back in his sheath, Caspian," said Nickabrick. "Murder at council, eh? Is that your game? Don't be fooled enough to try it. Do you think I'm afraid of you? There's 3 on my side and 3 on yours. Come on then," snarled Truffle Hunter, but he was immediately interrupted. "Stop, stop, stop," said Dr. Cornelius. "You gone too fast. The witch is dead. All the stories agree on that. What does Nickabrick mean by calling on the witch?" That great and terrible voice, which had spoken only once before, said, "Oh, is she?" And then the shrill, whining voice began. "Oh, bless his heart, his dear little majesty needn't mind about the White Lady. That's what we call her, being dead. The worshipful Master Doctor is only making a game of a poor old woman like me when he says that. Sweet Master Doctor, learn. Master Doctor, who ever heard of a witch that really died? You can always get them back. Call her up," said the great voice. "We are all ready. Draw the circle, prepare the blue fire." Above the steadily increasing growl of the badger and Cornelius' sharp "What?" rose the voice of King Caspian like thunder. black sorcery and calling up an accursed ghost, and I see who your companions are, a hag and a werewolf. The next minute or so was very confused. There was an animal roaring, a clash of steel, and the boys and the Trumpkin rushed in. Peter had a glimpse of a horrible, great, gaunt creature, half man and half wolf, in the very act of leaping upon the boy about his own age, and Edmund saw a badger and a dwarf rolling on the floor in a sort of catfight. Trumpkin found himself face to face with the hag. Her nose and chin stuck out like a pair of nutcrackers. Her dirty gray hair was flying about her face, and she had just got Dr. Cornelius by the throat. At one slash, the Trumpkin sword, her head rolled on the floor. Then the light was knocked over, and it was all swords, teeth, claws, fists, and boots for about 60 seconds. Then silence. Are you all right, Ed? I think so, panted Edmund. I've got that brute Nickebrick, but he's still alive. Weights and water bottles came in angry voices. It's me you're sitting on. Get off. You're like a young elephant. Sorry, DLF, said Edmund. Is that better? Ow, no, bellowed Trumpkin. You're putting your boot in my mouth. Go away. Is King Caspian anywhere? Asked Peter. I'm here, said a rather faint voice. Something bit me. They all heard the noise of someone striking a match. It was Edmund. The little flame showed his face, looking pale and dirty. He blundered about a little, found the candle. They were no longer using the lamp, for they had run out of oil, set it on the table, and lit it. When the flame rose clear, several people scrambled to their feet. 6 faces blinked at one another in the candlelight. We don't seem to have any enemies left, said Peter. There's the hag dead. He turned his eyes quickly away from her. And Nickerbrick dead too. And I suppose this thing is a werewolf. So it's so long since I've seen one. Wolf's head and man's body. That means he was just turning from man into a wolf at the moment he was killed. And you, I suppose, are King Caspian. Yes, said the other boy. But I have no idea. Who are you? It's the High King, King Peter, said Trumpkin. Your Majesty is very welcome, said Caspian. And so is your Majesty, said Peter. I haven't come to take your place, but to put you into it. Your Majesty, said another voice at Peter's elbow. He turned and found himself face to face with the badger. Peter leaned forward, put his arms round the beast and kissed the furry head. It wasn't a girlish thing for him to do that, because he was the High King. Best of badgers, he said. You never doubted us all through. No credit to me, your Majesty, said Truffle Hunter. I'm a beast, and we don't change. I'm a badger. What's more, and we hold on. I'm sorry for Nickerbrick, said Caspian, though he hated me from the first moment he saw me. He had gone sour inside from long suffering and hating. If he had won quickly, he might have become a good dwarf in the days of peace. I don't know which of us killed him. I'm glad of that. You're bleeding, said Peter. Yes, I'm bitten, said Caspian. It was that wolf thing, cleaning and bandaging. The wound took a long time, and when it was done, Trumpkin said, now, before everything else, we want some breakfast. But not here, said Peter. No, said Caspian with a shudder. And we must send someone to take away the bodies. Let the vermin be flung into a pit, said Peter. But the dwarf we will give to his people to be buried in their own fashion. They breakfast at last in order of the dark cellars of Aslan. How? It was not much of it was not such a breakfast as they would have chosen, for Caspian and Cornelius were thinking of venison pasties, and Peter and Edmund of buttered eggs and hot coffee. But was delicious. The end of chapter 12. Now we're going to chapter 13, and it's called The High King Command. Now said Peter, as they finished their meal, Aslan and the girls, that's Queen Susan and Queen Lucy Caspian, are somewhere close. We don't know when he will act. In his time, no doubt, not ours. In the meantime, he would like us to do what we can on our own. You say in Caspian, we are not strong enough to meet Mizraz in pitched battle. I'm afraid not, High King, said Caspian. He was liking Peter very much, but was rather tongue-tied. It was much stranger for him to meet the great kings out of the old stories than it was for them to meet him. Very well then, said Peter. I'll send him a challenge to a single combat. No one had doubt of this before. Please, said Caspian, could it not be me? I want to avenge my father. You're wounded, said Peter. And anyway, wouldn't he just laugh at our challenge from you? I mean, we have seen that you are a king and a warrior, but he thinks of you as a kid. But sire, said the badger, who sat very close to Peter and never took his eyes off him, will he accept a challenge even from you? He knows he has the stronger army. Very likely he won't, said Peter, but there's always the chance, and even if he doesn't, we shall spend the best part of the day sending heralds to and fro and all that. By the end, Aslan may have done something, and at least I can inspect the army and strengthen the position. I will send the challenge. In fact, I will write it at once. Have you pen and ink, Master Doctor? A scholar is never without them, Your Majesty, answered Dr. Cornelius. Very well, I will dictate, said Peter, and while the doctor spread out a parchment and opened his inkhorn and sharpened his pen, Peter leaned back with half-closed eyes and recalled to his mind the language in which he had written such things long ago in Narnia's golden age. Right, he said at last, and now if you are ready, Doctor. Dr. Cornelius dipped his pen and waited. Peter dictated as follows. Peter, by the gift of Aslan, by election, by prescription, and by conquest, High King over all kings in Narnia, Emperor of the Lone Islands, and Lord of Cair Paravel, Knight of the most noble order of the Lion, to Mizraz, son of Caspian, the 8th sometime Lord Protector of Narnia, and now styling himself King of Narnia, greeting. Have you got that? Narnia, greeting, muttered the doctor. Yes, sire. Then begin a new paragraph, said Peter. For to prevent the effusion of blood and for the avoiding of all other inconveniences likely to grow from the wars now lived in our realm of Narnia, it is our pleasure to adventure our royal person on behalf of our trusty and well-beloved Caspian in clean wager of battle to prove upon your lordship's body that the said Caspian is lawful king under us in Narnia, both by our gift and by the laws of the Telmarines, and your lordship twice guilty of treachery, both in withholding the dominion of Narnia from the said Caspian, and in the most abominable, don't forget to spell it with an H, Doctor, bloody and unnatural murder of your kindly lord and brother King Caspian, 9th of that name. Wherefore we most heartily provoke, challenge, and defy your lordship set combat and monomaki, and have sent these letters by the hand of our well-beloved and royal brother Edmund, sometime king under us in Narnia, Duke of Lantern Waste and Count of the Western March, Knight of the Noble Order of the Table, to whom we have given full power of determining with your lordship all the conditions of the said battle, given at our lodging in Aslan's Howe, this 12th day of the month green roof in the first year of Caspian 10th of Narnia. That ought to do, said Peter, drawing a deep breath. And now we must send 2 others with King Edmund. I think the giant ought to be one. He's not very clever, you know, said Caspian. Of course not, said Peter, but any giant looks impressive if only he will keep quiet, and it will cheer him up. But who for the other? Upon my word, said Trumpkin, if you want someone who can kill with looks, Ribbit-cheek would be the best. He would need, from all I hear, said Peter with a laugh. If only he wasn't so small. They wouldn't even see him till he was close. Send Glenstorm, sire, said Trufflehunter. No one ever laughed at a centaur. An hour later, 2 great sword lords in the army Mizraz, the Lord Glosel and the Lord Caspian, strolling along their lines and picking their teeth after breakfast, looked up and saw coming down to them from the wood the centaur and giant Wimbleweather, whom they had seen before a battle had between them a figure they could not recognize, nor indeed would the other boys at Edmund's school have recognized him if they could have seen him at the moment, for Aslan had breathed on him at their meeting, and a kind of greatness hung about him. What's to do, said the Lord Glosel. An attack, he partly rather, said Caspian. See, they carry green branches. They are coming to surrender most likely. He that is walking between the centaur and a giant has no look of surrender in his face, said Glosel. Who can it be? It is not a boy, Caspian. No, indeed, said Caspian. This is a fell warrior. I warrant you. Whether the rebels have got him from, he is in the lordship private ear, a kingler man that ever Mizraz was, and what mail he wears, none of the earthsmiths can make the like. I'll wager my dapple palmly he brings a challenge, not a surrender, said Glosel. How then, said Caspian, we hold the enemy in her first here. Mizraz would never be so harebrained as to throw away his advantage on a combat. He might be brought to it, said Glosel in much lower voice. Softly, said Caspian. Step a little aside here, out of the earshot of those sentries. Now, have I taken your lordship's meaning right? If the king undertook wager of battle, whispered Glosel, why either he would kill or be killed. So said Caspian, nodding his head. If he killed, we should have won this war, certainly, and if not, we should be as able to win it without the king's grace as with him. For I need not tell your lordship that Mizraz is no very great captain, and that after that we should be both victorious and kingless. And it is your meaning, my lord, that you and I could hold this land quiet as conveniently without a king as with one. Glosel's face grew ugly. first put him on the throne, and in all the years that he has enjoyed it, what fruits have come our way, what gratitude he has shown us. Say no more, answered Caspian, but look, here comes one to fetch us the king's tent. When they reached Mizrah's tent, they saw Edmund and his two companions seated outside, it being entertained with cakes and wine, having already delivered the challenge and withdrawn while the king was considering it. When they saw them thus at close quarters, the two Telmarine lords thought all three of them were alarming. Inside they found Mizrah unarmed and finishing his breakfast. His face was flushed, and there was a skull on his brow. Therein he growled, flinging the parchment across the table to them. See what a pack of nursery tales our jackanapes of a nephew he sent us. By your leave, sire, said Glassel, if the young warrior whom we have just seen outside the King Edmund mentioned in the writing, then I would not call him a nursery tale, but a very dangerous knight. King Edmund, said Mizrah, does your lordship believe those old wives' fables about Peter and Edmund and the rest? I believe my eyes, your majesty, said Glassel. Well, this is to no purpose, said Mizrah, but as touching the challenge, I suppose there is only one opinion between us. I suppose so indeed, sire, said Glassel. And what is that? Asked the king, mostly infallibly to refuse it, said Glassel. For thou, I have never been called a coward. I must plainly say that to meet that young man in battle is more than my heart would serve me for. And if, as is likely, his brother, the High King, is more dangerous than he, why, on your life, my lord king, have ye nothing to do with him? Plague on you, cried Mizrah. It was not that sort of counsel I wanted. Do you think I'm asking you if I should be afraid to meet this Peter? If there is such a man, do you think I fear him? I wanted your counsel of the policy of the matter, whether we having the advantage, should hazard it on a wager of battle, to which I can only answer, your majesty, said Glassel, that for all reason the challenge should be refused. There is death in a strange knight's face. There you are again, said Mizrah, now thoroughly angry. Are you trying to make it appear that I am as great a coward as your lordship? Your majesty may say your pleasure, said Glassel sulkily. You talk like an old woman, Glassel, said the king. What say you, my lord Caspian? Do not touch it, sire, was the reply. And what your majesty says of the policy of the thing comes in very happily. It gives your majesty excellent grounds for refusal, without any cause for questioning your majesty's honor or courage. Great heaven, exclaimed Miraz, jumping to his feet. Are you also bewitched today? Do you think I'm looking for grounds to refuse it? You might as well call me coward to my face. The conversation was going exactly as the two lords wished, so they said nothing. I see what it is, said Miraz, after staring at them, as if his eyes would start out of his head. You are as lily-livered as the hares yourselves, and have the effrontery to imagine my heart after the likeness of yours. Grounds for a refusal, indeed. Excuses for not fighting. Are you soldiers? Are you witchcraft or treason has frozen both your bloods. We beseech your majesty, said Glycel, but Mizraz had flung out of the tent, and they could hear him bawling out his acceptance to Edmund. The two lords looked at one another, and chuckled quietly. I knew he'd do it if he were properly shaft, said Glycel, but I'll not forget he called me coward. It shall be paid for. There was a great staring in Aslan. How when the news came back and was communicated to the various creatures, Edmund with one of Mizraz's captains had already marked out the place for the combat, and ropes and stakes had been put around it. 2 Telmarines were to stand at 2 of the corners, and one in the middle of one side as marshals of the list. 3 marshals for the other 2 corners, and the other side were to be furnished by the High King Peter, and just explaining to Caspian that he could not be one because his right to the throne was what they were fighting about, when suddenly a thick, sleepy voice said, Your Majesty, please. Peter turned, and there stood the eldest of the Bulgy Bears. If you please, Your Majesty, he said, I'm a bear. I am, to be sure, so you are, and a good bear too, I don't doubt, said Peter. Yes, said the bear, but it was always the right of the bears to supply one marshal of the list. Don't let him, whispered Trumpkin to Peter. He's a good creature, but he'll shame us all. He'll go to sleep, and he will suck his paws in front of the enemy too. I can't help that, said Peter, because he's quite right. The bear had that privilege. I can't imagine how it has been remembered all these years, when so many other things have been forgotten. Please, Your Majesty, said the bear. It is your right, said Peter, and you shall be one of the marshals, but you must remember not to suck your paws. Of course not, said the bear, in a very shocked voice. Why you're doing it this minute, bellowed Trumpkin. The bear whipped his paw out of his mouth and pretended he hadn't heard. Sire, came a shrill voice from near the ground. Ah, Ripperty, said Peter after looking up. And down around the people usually did when addressed by the mouse. Sire, said Ripperty, my life is ever at your command, but my honor is my own. Sire, I have among my people the only trumpeter in your Majesty's army. I had thought perhaps we must have been sent with the challenge. Sire, my people are grieved. Perhaps if we were your pleasure that I should be a marshal of the list, it would content them. And noise not unlike a thunder broke out from somewhere overhead at his point. A giant Wimbleweather burst into one of those not so not very intelligent laughs, to which the nicer sorts of giant are so liable. He checked himself at once and looked as grave as a turnip by the time Ripperty discovered this matter we have but a single mind. I thought I heard someone laughing just now. If anyone present wishes to make me the subject of his wit, I'm very much at his service with my sword whenever he has leisure. An awful silence followed this remark, which was broken by Peter saying, Giant Wimbleweather and the Bear and Arsendron Glenstorm shall be our marshals. The combat will be at 2 hours after noon. Dinner at noon precisely, I say, said Edmund as they walked away. I suppose it is all right. I mean, I suppose you can't beat him. That's what I'm